Hello friends, the topic for today is the core IoT functional stack. In this video, I will discuss the IoT functional stack with its three layers and the sublayers in details. Let us start with the introduction. The IoT networks are built around the concept of things or smart objects performing functions and delivering new connected services. The things or objects are smart because they use a combination of contextual information and configured goals to perform actions. These actions can be self-contained, that is, the smart object does not rely on external system for its actions. However, in most cases, the things interact with an external system to report information that smart object collects, to exchange with other objects, or to interact with the management platform. The management platform can be used to process data collected from smart object and guide the behavior of the smart object. From an architectural standpoint, several components have to work together for an IoT network to be operational. The core IoT functional stack consists of the following layers. Layer 1, things, sensors and actuator layer. Then layer 2, communication network layer. And layer 3, application and analytics layer. Let us go to the layer 1, things, that is sensors and actuator layer. At this layer, the physical devices need to fit the constraints of the environment in which they are deployed, while still being able to provide the information needed. From architectural standpoint, the variety of smart object types, shapes and needs drive the variety of protocols and architecture. There are myriad ways to classify smart objects. One architectural classification could be battery operated and power connected. This classification is based on whether the object carries its own energy supply or receives continuous power from the external power source. Then next we have the mobile or static. This classification is based on whether the thing should move or always stay at the same location. Then next we have low or high reporting frequency. This classification is based on how often the object should report monitored parameter. Then next we have simple or rich data. This classification is based on the quantity of data exchanged at each report cycle. Richer data typically drives high power consumption. This classification is often combined with previous to determine the object data throughput. Then next we have the report range. This classification is based on the distance at which the gateway is located. Then next we have object density per se. This classification is based on the number of smart objects with the similar needs to communicate over a given area connected to the same gateway. From the architectural standpoint, your initial task is to determine which technology should be used to allow smart objects to communicate. This determination depends on the ways the things are classified. However, some industries such as manufacturing and utilities may include objects in various categories matching different needs. Figure provides some examples of applications matching the combination of mobility and throughput requirements. Here we have the high mobility, high throughput, which includes the in-vehicle communication and infotainment, connected personal smart devices, video surveillance. Then next we have the high mobility, low throughput. It includes vehicle telematics, fleet management, battlefield communication. Then next we have the low mobility, high throughput. It includes digital signage, telemedicine, traffic cameras and connected electronics. And last we have the low mobility and low throughput. It includes the industrial applications such as pumps, motors, etc. Then environmental applications such as weather sensors, etc. And home applications such as fire and safety, security control. And retail applications such as vending system, POS and signage. The categories used to classify things can influence other parameters and can also influence one another. The first step in designing an IoT network is to examine requirements in terms of mobility and data transmission. How much data, how often. Then let us go to the Layer 2, communication network layer. When smart objects are not self-contained, they need to communicate with an external system. In many cases, this communication uses a wireless technology. This layer has 4 sublayers: access network sublayer, then gateways and backhaul network sublayer, network transport layer, IoT network management sublayer. Once you have determined the influence of the smart object form factor over its transmission capabilities, that is transmission range, data volume and frequency, sensor density and mobility, you are ready to connect the object and communicate. Then let us go to the access network sublayer. There is a direct relationship between the IoT network technology you choose and the type of connectivity topology this technology allows. Each technology was designed with a certain number of use cases in mind: what to connect, where to connect, how much data to transport, at what interval, and over what distance. These use cases determine the frequency band that was expected to be most suitable, the frame structure matching the expected data pattern, that is the packet size and the communication intervals, and the possible topologies that these use cases illustrate. As IoT continues to grow exponentially, you will encounter a wide variety of applications and special use cases. For each of them, an access technology will be required. IoT sometimes reuses existing technology whose characteristics match more or less closely the IoT use case requirements, whereas some access technologies were developed specially for IoT use cases. Others were not. One key parameter determining the choice of access technology is the range between the smart object and the information collected. Figure lists some access technologies you may encounter in the IoT world and the expected transmission distance. Here you can see the first, that is the NFC, near field communication, which is a communication technology that enables contactless EMV, that is Europay, MasterCard, Visa, that is a standard dedicated for securing contactless NFC payment transaction. The NFC technology is designed for an operation of a few centimeters, that is less than 10 centimeters. Then we have the WPAN, that is wireless personal area network, where we use the Bluetooth. Then we have the WHAN, that is wireless home area network. Commonly we use the Zigbee, Z-Wave, etc. Then we have the WFAN, that is wireless field area network. Then we have the wireless LAN and neighborhood area network, WNAN. So all these are in the range of less than 5 kilometers. Then we have the WWAN, that is wireless wide area network, and we have the low power wide area network, which is licensed and unlicensed, and even the cellular is also included here. So here the range is within 100 kilometers. Now here in the figure, the ranges in the figure are inclusive. For example, cellular is indicated for transmission beyond 5 kilometers, but could achieve a successful cellular transmission at a shorter range, for example 100 meters. By contrast, Zigbee is expected to be efficient over a range of few tens of meters, but you would not expect a successful Zigbee transmission over a range of 10 kilometers. Range estimates are grouped by category names that illustrate the environment or the vertical where data collection over the range is expected. Increasingly, the throughput and achievable distance typically comes with an increase in power consumption. Therefore, after determining the smart object requirements in terms of mobility and data transfer, a second step is to determine the target quantity of objects in a single collection cell based on the transmission range and throughput required. This parameter in turn determines the size of the cell. It may be tempting to simply choose the technology with the longest range and highest throughput. However, the cost of the technology is the third determining factor. The amount of data to carry over a given time period, along with the correlated power consumption, driving possibly limitations in mobility and range, determine the wireless cell size and the structure. Then let us go to the next sublayer, that is gateways and backhaul sublayer. Data collected from smart object may need to be forwarded to a central station where data is processed. As this station is often in a different location from the smart object, data directly received from the sensor through an access technology needs to be forwarded to another medium, that is the backhaul, and transported to the central station. The gateway is in charge of this intermediate communication. Then let us go to the next sublayer, network transport sublayer. The flexibility of internet protocol allows this protocol to be embedded in objects of very different natures, exchanging information over very different media, including low power, lossy, and low bandwidth network. For example, RFC 2464 describes how an IPv6 packet gets encapsulated over Ethernet frame and is also used for IEEE 802.11 Wi-Fi. Similarly, the IETF 6LoWPAN working group specifies how IPv6 packets are carried efficiently over lossy network, forming an adoption layer for IPv6 primarily for IoT network. Finally, the transport layer built above IP, that is Internet Protocol, the UDP and the TCP, can easily be leveraged to decide whether the network should control the data packet delivery with TCP or whether the control should be left to the application UDP. Now, UDP is a much lighter and faster protocol than TCP. However, it does not guarantee packet delivery. Both TCP and UDP can be secured with TLS or SSL or DTLS, that is for the UDP. Now, for communication to be successful, network and transport layer protocols such as IP and UDP must be implemented to support the variety of devices to connect and media to use. Then let us go to the IoT network management layer. Additional protocols must be in place to allow the head-end applications to exchange data with sensor. With the same logic of reusing well-known methods, Extensible Messaging and Presence Protocol XMPP was created. XMPP is based on instant messaging and presence. It allows the exchange of data between two or more systems and supports presence and contact list maintenance. It can also handle publish, subscribe, making it a good choice for distribution of information to multiple devices. A limitation of XMPP is its reliance on TCP, which may force subscriber to maintain open sessions to other systems and may be a limitation for memory constrained objects. To respond to the limits of web-based protocols, another protocol was created by the IETF Constrained RESTful Environment, that is Core Working Group. The protocol was Constrained Application Protocol, COAP. COAP uses some methods similar to those of HTTP, such as the GET, POST, PUT, and DELETE, but implements a shorter list, thus limiting the size of the header. COAP also runs on the UDP, whereas HTTP typically uses the TCP. COAP also adds a feature that is lacking in HTTP and very useful for IoT observation. Observations allow streaming of state changes as they occur without requiring the receiver to query for these changes. Another common IoT protocol utilized in the middle to upper layers is the Message Queue Telemetry Transport, MQTT. MQTT uses a broker-based architecture. The sensor can be set to be an MQTT publisher, publishes a piece of information. The application that needs to receive the information can be set as MQTT subscriber, and any intermediary system can be set as a broker to rely on the information between the publisher and the subscribers. MQTT runs over TCP. A consequence of reliance on TCP is that MQTT client typically holds a connection open to the broker at all times. This may be a limiting factor in the environments where loss is high or where computing resources are limited. The details of the protocols MQTT and COAP will be taken in separate video. Then let us go to the layer 3, applications and analytics layer. Once connected to a network, smart objects exchange information with other systems. As soon as your IoT network span more than a few sensors, the power of the Internet of Things appears in the application that makes use of information exchange with the smart objects. We'll discuss this layer with respect to the following points: analytics versus control applications, then data versus network analytics, data analytics versus business benefits, and smart services. Let us go to the analytics versus control application. Multiple applications can help increase the efficiency of an IoT network. Each application collects data and provides a range of functions based on analyzing the collected data. From an architectural standpoint, one basic classification can be as follows: analytics applications and control applications. Now let us go to the analytics application. This type of application collects data from multiple smart objects, processes the data, and displays information resulting from the data that was processed. The display can be about any aspect of the IoT network, from historical reports, statistics, or trends to individual system states. The important aspect is that the application processes the data to convey a view of network that cannot be obtained from solely looking at the information displayed by a single smart object. Then let us go to the control application. This type of application controls the behavior of the smart object or the behavior of an object related to the smart object. For example, a pressure sensor may be connected to a pump. A control application increases the pump speed when the connector sensor detects a drop in pressure. Control applications are very useful for controlling complex aspect of IoT network with a logic that cannot be programmed inside a single IoT object, either because of the configured changes are too complex to fit into a local system, or because the configured changes rely on the parameters that include elements outside the IoT object. An example of control system architecture is SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. SCADA was developed as a universal method to access remote systems and send instructions. One example where SCADA is widely used is in the control and monitoring of remote terminal units (RTUs) on the electrical distribution grid. Many advanced IoT applications include both analytics and control modules. In most cases, data is collected from the smart objects and processed in the analytics module. The result of this processing may be used to modify the behavior of smart objects or systems related to smart objects. The control module is used to convey this instruction for behavioral changes. When evaluating an IoT data and analytics application, you need to determine the relative depth of the control part needed for your use case and match it against the type of analytics provided. Then let us go to the data versus network analytics. Analytics is a general term that describes processing information to make sense of collected data. In the world of IoT, a possible classification of analytic function is as follows. First is data analytics. This type of analytics processes the data collected by smart objects and combines it to provide an intelligent view related to the IoT system. At a very basic level, a dashboard can display an alarm when a weight sensor detects that a shelf is empty in a store. In a more complex case, temperature, pressure, wind, humidity, and light levels collected from thousands of sensors may be combined and then processed to determine the likelihood of a storm and its possible path. In this case, the data processing can be very complex and may combine multiple changing values over complex algorithms. Then let us go to the network analytics. Most IoT systems are built around smart objects connected to the network. A loss or degradation in the connectivity is likely to affect the efficiency of the system. Such a loss can have dramatic effects. For example, an open mines use wireless networks to automatically pilot dump trucks. A lasting loss of connectivity may result in an accident or degradation of operation efficiency. That is, automated dump trucks typically stop upon connectivity loss. Most analytic applications employ both data and network analytics modules. When architecturing an IoT system, you need to evaluate the need for each one. Network analysis is necessary for connected system. Data analysis is wider space with a large gray area in terms of needs than the network analytics. Then let us go to the data analytics versus business benefits. From an architectural standpoint, you can define static IoT networks where a clear list of elements to monitor and analytics to perform are determined. The static systems are common in industrial environments where the IoT charter is about providing a clear view of the state of the operation. However, a smarter architectural choice may be to allow for an open system where the network is engineered to be flexible enough that other sensors may be added in the future and where both upstream and downstream operations are allowed. This flexibility allows for additional processing of the existing sensors and also deeper and more efficient interaction with the connected objects. This enhanced data processing can result in a new added value for business that are envisaged at the time when system is initially deployed. Then let us go to the smart service. The ability to use IoT to improve operations is often termed smart services. This term is generic and in many cases the term is used, but its meaning is often stretched to include one form of service or another where an additional level of intelligence is provided. Fundamentally, smart services use IoT and aim for efficiency. Smart services can be integrated into an IoT system. For example, sensors can be integrated in a light bulb. A sensor can turn light on or off based on the presence of human in the room. And even smarter system can communicate with other systems in the house, learn the human movement pattern and anticipate the presence of a human turning on the light just before the person enters the room. An even smarter system can use smarter sensors that analyze multiple parameters to detect human mood and modify according to the light color to adapt to the learned preferences or to convey either a more relaxing or a more dynamic environment. The lessons learned are always that architecting open IoT systems allows for increased efficiency over time. New applications and possibilities for an IoT system will appear in the upcoming year. When building an IoT network, you should make sure to keep the systems open for possibility of new smart objects and more traffic on the system. With this, we come to the end of this. If you like the video, press the like button, share with your friends and subscribe to our channel Engineering and Technology for You. And don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get notifications for our future videos on this topic. Then thanks for watching. Have a nice day.